Welcome to MTN Outdoors.
Well, the seasons, they are changing. We told you about meteorological spring, which is characterized by warmer temperatures and kicked off on March 1st. Now we're approaching astronomical spring, dependent upon the positioning of celestial bodies in our solar system. That's coming up on March 20th. In the meantime, speaking of celestial, there's been no shortage of cool things to see in the night sky. We've had planetary alignments, and the entirety of North America was able to see a total lunar eclipse this week, where the weather behaved. As it warms up, we again have to be careful around bodies of water as it melts, but local first responders will be ready, as you'll see here in a few. Still wouldn't bet the house on snow being out of the picture quite yet, but it could be an opportune time to do some early planting. I'm Keith Grevenitz, guiding you through the seasons, and your host of MTN Outdoors.
Night sky watchers have had plenty to see so far this year, and now a total lunar eclipse will be visible in Montana this Thursday night. The entirety of the moon will fall under the darkest part of the Earth's shadow. The moon will turn red, which is why lunar eclipses are sometimes called a blood moon. The reason for the change in color is the same phenomenon that makes our sky blue and sunsets orangey red. During a lunar eclipse, sunlight passes through the Earth's atmosphere and still reaches the lunar surface. This refracted light is as if all of the world's sunrises and sunsets are projected onto the moon, giving it the reddish color. The eclipse will occur late Thursday night, beginning just before 10 p.m. The start of totality will be at 12:26 a.m. Friday morning, with totality ending at 1:31 a.m. The eclipse will completely end at 4 a.m. Also that night in the western sky, Jupiter and Mars will be visible. This is the only total lunar eclipse visible in Montana this year. The next lunar eclipse will be March 3rd of 2026. Later this month, Venus will be visible in both the morning and evening skies for a few days between the 18th and the 21st. And on March 29th, the partial solar eclipse will be visible in the northeastern United States. This will not be visible in Montana. So get out and enjoy another treat in the night sky this Thursday. All we need is clear skies. And now you're a little more weather-wise.
Kick your feet, kick your feet, kick your feet, kick your feet.
Over 15 volunteer firefighters with the Tri-Lakes Volunteer Fire Department took a cold plunge on Saturday for the group's first ever ice rescue training with brand new gear they have never had.
With us being Tri-Lakes, we have 3 lakes in the district. Last year we had a couple people go through the ice up by the causeway, and that kind of just got us rolling on maybe we should have it ourselves out here.
Tri-Lakes says they are always upgrading and adapting to the needs of our community, and it is crucial to have this training and equipment with how vast the Helena Valley is.
The response time would just be increased by the time they get to their station, get what gear is needed. So it's imperative that these departments that have waterways and ice within their system or within their area can be trained to respond in a time of need for somebody through the ice.
The ice rescue training and gear is not the only thing new to Tri-Lakes.
This is our support unit. It looks like an ambulance. It is not an ambulance.
The not an ambulance support vehicle started off looking like this, but now it looks like this. Tri-Lakes will use it to support their volunteers as a place to check their vitals, keep warm in the winter, and cool off in the summer.
Our people are out there putting in the work for somebody else, looking out for somebody else, and we wanted to start doing a better job looking out for them.
This is the only support vehicle in the Helena Valley for fire departments, but it is not just for Tri-Lakes.
Our department participates in mutual aid with our neighboring departments throughout the Helena Valley. It is something that if they want it, it's available to their departments.
If you would like to get involved with a volunteer fire department, Tri-Lakes recommends reaching out to your local fire department to see which area would be best fit. In Helena, I'm Allie Kaiser, MTN News.
While it may still be winter, spring is just around the corner, which means that greenhouses are starting to get ready for planting season.
So these are what we call flats. You can see there's individual cells. Each one of these has several plants in it. We are currently starting our seedlings. Today, I was doing some tomatoes and some peppers, parsley, herbs, things like that.
With the recent batch of good weather, many people are getting the itch to go outside and start planting. And while spring begins on March 20th, in Montana, the last freeze is much later.
For spring, our last average frost date is on May 15th. That means, on average, that's usually about the last time that we get a snow.
Watering is another common problem point for gardeners. Bundy recommends that you soak the plants completely and let them dry, and be sure to include plenty of drainage.
We need to water it thoroughly and then wait until it's dry. This is true for all houseplants. This is true for herbs. This is true for your garden that can cause problems with fungus, algae growth, things such as that. They really do want to be able to drain. For example, a citrus tree or an avocado tree that is consistently kept watered in a pot can experience root rot.
A greenhouse has much more equipment than the average gardener, but the concepts are the same.
You don't really need something that expensive. You just need to get a table lamp that you don't use as much as you thought you might, and a daylight bulb. So we here in the greenhouse have benches with heated tubes where it goes through a hot water system to heat those little baby seedlings because they want to be kept at about 55 to 60 degrees consistently, including during the nighttime. In any place that has a garden center, you can purchase these kind of roll-up heating mats.
Bundy recommends to contact your local agricultural extension office to make sure your plants are Montana compatible.
Anything that has a longer growing season, such as a habanero pepper, which takes 90 days from flower to fruit, you want to start that earlier.
In Great Falls, I'm James Rowan, MTN News.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
With a new presidential administration taking over, that means some new rules and regulations, or in this case, some major cuts. As President Donald Trump has said, some of these adjustments will sting at first, but are we experiencing growing pains, or is it something that could cut deeper? Montana is an agriculture state and it shares its entire northern border with Canada. We're finding out about tariff turmoil and how some farmers are struggling. Let's hope it doesn't last long. National parks have been a hot topic with recent staff and funding cuts. We're looking at budget and staffing data to give you a better idea of the big picture. Whatever is decided with these vast lands, the Treasure State is going to have to figure it out and figure it out quickly.
Tariffs are about making America rich again and making America great again, and it's happening, and it will happen rather quickly. There'll be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that.
Long before the president's address to Congress, concerns about tariffs were growing in the agricultural community.
And so way back in January, these companies that sell into market into the U.S. and to Canada said, we don't know what's going to happen. And so because of that, we maybe need to cut back on what we're doing into Canada right now because we just don't know what the impacts are going to be.
Paul Canning is a northeast Montana farmer south of Flaxville, growing dry peas and lentils, which, along with chickpeas, make up pulse crops, of which Montana is the nation's leading producer.
Last year, it was roughly 62% of the total U.S. production came out of Montana, and it was valued at about $300 million.
Canning says when the U.S. imposes tariffs on products like steel or aluminum, farmers suffer in the form of retaliation.
Oftentimes, they retaliate against agriculture goods, including peas, lentils, and chickpeas.
Canning says the timing of the tariffs is not ideal because farmers are still recovering from previous tariffs on China and India.
And at that time, it cut our worldwide exports by roughly 37%. We are just now starting to climb out of that hole and rebuild those relationships and mend all those partnerships.
Canning says those tariffs resulted in the government offering market facilitation programs, but the money provided was retroactive and most farmers don't want to rely on subsidies. He adds that with no recourse for the people producers rely on to get the products to markets, they can lose industry partners. He's worried about the impact on the entire food chain and how it will affect Main Street, Montana.
When I got less cash in my pocket, then I'm not going to go buy a new car or I'm not going to go upgrade my equipment.
Canning is also worried about rising input costs resulting from tariffs. He uses fuel that's burned from Canadian oil. Chemicals to fight crop disease come from China, and potash fertilizer comes from Saskatchewan.
Does it cause stress? Absolutely. I mean, my neighbors are talking about what is it that I can grow this year that I can make a profit on. Pulses were it, and I'm afraid that we may have knocked the the last one off of the ladder here.
Canning serves as chairman of the U.S. Dry Pea and Lentil Council. He says they've been vocal in Washington. He doesn't consider himself an expert on world trade and has no idea how long these tariffs might last. He's just hoping negotiators can resolve the issues soon.
We don't want this to drag on, through the summer and into harvest. We certainly don't want that. And we also would like him to be enduring and persistent and lasting. So we don't want to go through this 2 or 3 years down the road also.
In Great Falls, Tim McGonigal, MTN News.
There is some new information about the job losses at national parks around the country. The National Parks Conservation Association says that after the buyouts and layoffs, that about 9% of national parks' permanent staff is gone. That has led to protests in some places around the nation, including some at the Arch, just down the road here at Yellowstone's north entrance. But not everyone is disappointed with the outcome.
Remember, we're spending taxpayer dollars. So what President Trump is doing needed to be done. I'm grateful for his courage, his leadership to do sometimes the hard thing to reduce the size of the federal government.
Within the last few days, DOJ says 34 national parks building leases are being terminated. This includes the headquarters of the National Parks Science Directorate in Fort Collins, Colorado, which employs 100 people. Leases are also ending for a National Resources Inventory Center in Arizona, an office for ecosystem restoration in the Everglades, and a biological science center in Moab, Utah. How is just talk about all of this affecting those folks?
Not good, because science and research depends on clear thinking. It depends on stability. It depends upon you knowing you're going to be there tomorrow. This chaos for, in some ways, no reason, throws all that out the window.
Senator Daines tells MTN News in an email that national parks are the country's crown jewels and says, quote, I've been in close contact with Yellowstone Superintendent Cam Shawley to ensure the park can continue accommodating visitors from far and wide. In Yellowstone, park employees monitor scientific research by outside scientists and conduct research themselves. The Park Service says the vast majority of research in Yellowstone is in biological sciences and geology.
The Park Service is able to set up long-term monitoring over decades of just being there every year. And that is extraordinarily important that other aspects of society are not addressing. The government is very good at that, particularly the National Park Service.
The National Parks Conservation Association says the national parks budget for the entire country is 1/15 of 1% of the federal budget. It's about $4.7 billion, but added more than $55 billion to the economy in 2023.
The Park Service is built around learning about the park and telling people about it. And that's a multiplying effect for the country.
In Mammoth, I'm John Shearer.
Off of 191 is the Big Sky Pit, which is the proposed unit development project, the Quarry Project, which has a lot of controversy surrounding it with environmental groups and activists.
When you see algal blooms of neon green, it looks like St. Paddy's Day in the Gallatin River. Why is that a problem? Well, it's a problem because that says the river's sick. And we need to use the same common sense we apply when our kids are sick, which is don't feed them junk food when they're trying to heal.
Guy Allsenser is the executive director for the Upper Missouri Waterkeepers. Allsenser points to research showing that the shallow groundwater in Big Sky's Canyon area, where the Quarry Project septic systems will drain, connects to the Gallatin River, raising concerns about worsening pollution.
Putting septic pollution into groundwater that gets in the river, it's like a house of cards, and it doesn't make sense scientifically. It certainly doesn't make common sense, and I would argue it's unlawful. And it's really incumbent on our decision makers and elected leaders to say no when decisions like the quarry represent a race to the bottom for water quality.
The Corey project includes 135 single-family homes, 130 apartments, and commercial spaces, with 90 homes already approved, while the current environmental assessment focuses on the remaining 45 homes in Phase 2. In late November 2024, the Department of Environmental Quality, or DEQ, released a draft environmental assessment for Phase 2, a main public water extension and 4 wastewater treatment systems. In the November draft environmental assessment, the DEQ says there are no anticipated significant impacts to the surrounding environment from the proposed drinking water, stormwater, and wastewater facilities. I asked the DEQ about more information on the assessment. The DEQ says it's not their role to determine whether or in what location a subdivision may be developed. That determination is made at the local level, in this case by the county. Allsensor says the DEQ is disregarding scientific evidence he says began with the Gallatin County's approval of Phase 1 in 2019.
It's infuriating to have to stand up to our elected officials and to our agencies and say, do your job, use sound science, and use proven existing technology to protect the things we all care about. It's not just the law, it's common sense.
I reached out to Scott Altman, one of the Corey developers, and he declined an on-camera interview, but he gave a lengthy statement. In summary, Altman says the Corey is a sustainable workforce housing development in Big Sky that addresses the local housing shortage while prioritizing environmental responsibility through advanced wastewater treatment, deed restrictions to ensure long-term affordability, and eco-friendly landscaping, all developed in close collaboration with local authorities and the community. Allsensor wants to find a balance between river health and Montanans.
Our way of life is tied together by clean, healthy rivers. It's got to start with decision makers making science-based solutions that protect river quality. It should not be a race to the bottom, all for new development.
The DEQ is currently reviewing more than 700 public comments on its draft environmental assessment for Phase 2 of the Corey project. In Big Sky, Megan Elaine, MTN News.
In order to go fishing here on the Yellowstone River, not only will you need your standard fishing license, you also need a conservation license. In fact, you'll need that conservation license to access most public state lands here in Montana.
As the temperature warms and snow melts, it makes sense that the new licensing year for Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks starts March 1st.
Now they need to have this conservation license to go to state-managed properties.
State-managed properties include Montana State Trust lands, public state-owned fishing and hunting areas, and wildlife management areas. That conservation license must be purchased in order to buy an annual fishing or hunting license. They're $10 for non-residents, $8 for adult residents, and $4 for seniors and youth. Kids under 12 do not need a license.
But now our folks like our bird watchers and our dog walkers also have to sort of pay to play.
Chrissy Webb with Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks says these required conservation licenses help fund maintenance for the parks.
You know, it's been a little bit of pushback, but I think overall people are, accepting that it's just going to be part of using these sites.
But at places like Lake Elmo State Park, that conservation license isn't required. If it's a state park, those fees remain the same. Similarly, parks like Riverside and Laurel don't require that conservation license either. If it's a park that's owned by the city, it's not required, only state-owned lands.
This is really just sort of a big change for people, that aren't buying a hunting or a fishing license every year. They now still need to buy that conservation license if they're going to say, go bird watching.
Chrissy says purchasing these licenses is fairly simple. They can be purchased online at an FWP office or even at Cabela's. In Yellowstone County, Matt Carmack, MTN News.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Before you know it, it'll be summer again. You'll hear those summer bird sounds, smell the terpenes of beautiful blooming flowers. But I'm in no hurry. Montanans make winter look good. On the ski mountains, Special Olympians have been having fun. And if you're like me, they'll put a big smile on your face. Then we have a story that is visually stunning. We'll look at how Fish, Wildlife, and Parks gathers data on brucellosis, a bacterial disease that has been found in elk. You don't want to miss this.
There are a lot of smiling faces out here right now and a lot of fun music as folks at the Special Olympics are skiing and racing as athletes today up here in Big Sky.
What I really love about this event and this competition is that it's the smiles. We do it for the smiles, and when you see these competitors coming through the race gates, having the best day of their life, and especially at the award ceremony and the opening ceremonies. It's just absolutely electric.
Sean Fitzgerald is the Winter Games coordinator for Special Olympics of Montana. This is the 16th year the Winter Special Olympics has taken place at Moonlight Basin in Big Sky. As athletes of all ages enjoy the winter wonderland, I asked some of them about their day on the slopes. For athlete Gracie,
skiing is super fun and I love it so much.
Athlete Sarah enjoys being cheered on and spending time with friends.
I love the volunteers and the athletes too.
With more than 65 athletes and 75 volunteers, the day is jam-packed with winter sports and a few dance parties scattered throughout.
How does it feel today to be skiing?
Yeah, I feel good.
Fun is the name of the game.
It feels pretty good. I'm happy right now.
Sean tells me these athletes have been practicing all year with the help of Bozeman nonprofit Eagle Mount.
Like, there's so much that they give in preparation to come and compete.
Sean wants folks at home to know.
We can always use new athletes and new volunteers. So if you see this and you want to get involved, by all means, we would love to have you come and join us.
At the end of the day, these athletes are sharing positive vibes and good times on the mountain.
Hey, you got this.
Yeah.
I know it might be hard at first, but I think you can do it. I know you can.
It's awesome.
Just believe in yourself and do your best.
In Big Sky, Megan Elaine, MTN News.
The Montana Department of Fish, Wildlife, and Parks has spent part of the winter capturing and testing elk for brucellosis. That program has been going on for years. This winter, their efforts took place in the Crazies. This year, 52 elk captured and tested.
We're glad to see that all of those elk that were tested negative for brucellosis exposure.
Now, brucellosis can cause cattle to abort their calves if in cattle herds. So this testing is important for more than just FWP.
The goal of it is to help us better understand the presence of brucellosis in elk and how those elk commingle with cattle in different places.
The study of these elk didn't end with the blood test. Some of those captured will provide information to FWP for the next year.
We also put out a number of GPS collars, which helps us monitor elk movements throughout the year. Helps us better understand what their summer and winter ranges look like, and how that sometimes may overlap with livestock or with other things on the landscape.
Over the years, elk in the Tobacco Roots, the Highlands, the Pioneers, and the area around Ashland, Montana have all been tested for brucellosis as a part of FWP's yearly brucellosis testing program. In the Shields River Valley in the shadow of the Crazies, Chet Lehman, MTN News.